Andrew Abbott legitimately broke out in 2025. Can he repeat his performance in 2026? I got that and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we are number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the bell below to subscribe to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or wherever you're getting your audio, make sure to check us out on there. Hit a subscribe button and leave a 5-star rating and review. It really helps out the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Now, obviously, you're seeing a little bit of kind of a theme. We're going over teams, but the reason why we're doing this is we're breaking down every player on the teams that actually are fantasy relevant in 2026. And I got some great questions. What to do with some of these pitchers on the Reds? Is Andrew Abbott a top 36 pitcher? What are we doing with Chase Burns this year? And actually, does the rookie sensation Sal Stewart actually have value in 2026? And we're going to dive into all of that, but I want to open up with some obvious names such as Elly De La Cruz. Elly De La Cruz played 162 games this year, literally did not miss a game, was absolutely incredible. I feel like the man made it his mission to play every single game under the sun. Now, I feel like that came at a cost. He did not hit as many home runs this year, and didn't even reach the heights of stolen bases, but was really good as a whole. I definitely, not disappointed with his season, but being that he could have been, a top 5 pick this year for you, makes it a little disappointing because after what he did in 2024, you feel like he would have followed up with something similar. 629 at bats, 102 runs, 31 doubles, 7 triples, 22 bombs, 86 ribs, 37 stolen bases, and batted .264. Not a terrible year. There was positive regression in the batting average. He went from 259 to 264. And the runs stayed on par. The ribs improved. But the power dipped about 3 home runs, which isn't atrocious, but I actually thought he would have hit more, and we'll get into why. The stolen bases were down 30, which is also not great. But the strikeouts came down as well. So there's pros and cons to Elly De La Cruz this year, and I feel like hopefully this year in 2026, there's going to be a happy medium. And let's talk about it. So Elly De La Cruz made great contact with the ball. Hit the ball, had a barrel percentage of 10.2%. Now, what he did in 24 was 12.7%, so there was some negative regression. On top of that, in 24, he also hit the ball hard, had a hard contact percentage of 45%. Where in 25, that came down a little bit at 44.2%. Not much, but enough. You mix that in with the negative regression and barrel percentage, you could see why the power didn't hit the 25. Where honestly, I thought he was going to hit 30 to 35 because the dude crushes the ball. The average exit velocity on the year is 91 miles an hour. On top of that, it's just like, okay, it was just smelling like, okay, this was going to be the year where he just goes 30, 40. Which I think is totally in the realm of possibility, if not 40-40 at some point in his career, because he crushes the ball. I think there was some good signs. The walk percentage was at 9.6%. You look at what he did last year; it was right on par at barely below it at 9.9%. And the K rate came down to 25.9% from last year. 31.3%. So really cut that strikeout rate down. Hence why we saw an improvement in the batting average, even though you didn't really see it too much. I mean, it was only a 6% difference, but the expected batting average truly supported it. Whereas in 24, the expected batting average was 240. So everything kind of aligns better. Now, if he's the 260 to 265 hitter the rest of his career and is able to get the home runs up to 30 and the stolen bases stay in the 30 to 40 range, he's a top 3 pick, no question, every single year. I mean, that's Bobby Witt and then some, except that Bobby Witt can hit 300. But I think the power upside is there for Elly De La Cruz because there's a ceiling where, okay, cool, he turns around, hits 40 home runs and has 40 stolen bases and it's Ronald Acuna level. Like that's the kind of the outcomes we're expecting with Elly De La Cruz. He's definitely worth a top 5 pick going into 2026, and I think that there's going to be better days for him. Everything that he did this year is 100% repeatable. Increase in strikeout, better strikeout percentage, walk percentage stayed on par. We saw the improvement in batting average. Still barreling 10.2% and still hitting the ball hard contact for 44.2%. Positive regression is coming in both those categories, being that we've seen it already. And I think that we're going to see better days ahead for that. Now he just needs a little bit of a break and not get cold, and I think we're going to see a little bit more. So hopefully they manage him a little bit better. But Elly De La Cruz is an absolute unit, and he needs to be drafted literally everywhere. I think top 4 pick, hands down. Yeah, he's totally worth it. But let's move on. Talking about Mr. Steroids himself, Noelvi Marte. Now, Marte obviously missed half a season due to his suspension, played about 90 games. Had 339 at bats, 45 runs, 17 doubles, 2 triples, 14 bombs, 51 ribs, 10 stolen bases, and batted 263. Now, how are we approaching him in 2026? Well, easily. I'm going to draft him. Honestly, the pace he had, the way he played, I need to have him on my team. I think he's going to be number 12 overall third baseman for me. There's some positives and there's some negatives in his game that I think we're going to see some positive regression from. He barreled 9% of the time, which is about league average. I want to see him, creep up into the 10%, which I think is totally doable. The thing that we need to see for the breakout, honestly, for the power numbers to be supported is the hard hit percentage to go up from like legit 36% to see about 45%. So it needs to go up like 9 to 10%. And then I could really buy in. But, the pace also says it, hey, he had 14 home runs and 339 at bats. You put him down for another, let's say 300 at bats or even just 250, and he's hitting 25. The 10 stolen bases are spectacular. He's a fast dude, 89th percentile. He's awesome in those regards. So the stolen bases are going to be there. But if I were to tell you in 2026, he hits 25 home runs and steals 25 bags and hits 260, would you be mad on that with that on a team that I think is going to grow, with a team that has Elly De La Cruz, with a team that has Sal Stewart, with a team that has Tyler Stevenson, and more on this team that is going to be driven in, that is going to have ribbies opportunities? Of course, you draft this player. So that's why I think he's going to be in the top 12 for me at third base. I think he actually has a lot of upside. So Noelvi Marte is a guy I'm going to be targeting in 2026. I think a guy that's also going to be kind of overlooked and probably be more in the 14 to 15 range in terms of third baseman income at a value. Marte is somebody we're going to be drafting in 2026. But let's move on. So I got Mr. Sal Stewart. Sal Stewart got the call at the end of the year. He's a big boy, 6'1", 224 pounds, obviously first licks at the bigs, and absolutely crushed it. Played a grand total of 18 games, had 55 at-bats, 11 runs, a double, 5 bombs, 8 ribs, batted about 255. Now, if you're not familiar with Sal Stewart and his profile, let me inform you of who the guy is. Before getting the call, he had 437 at-bats, 78 runs, 34 doubles, 20 bombs, 80 ribs, 17 stolen bases, and batted a whopping 309. He's hit 309, 279, 275, 292. Since being a minor league player, the dude is a stud, known for his power. He crushes the ball. He has a little bit of wheels. He just looks good overall. What he did this year in this small sample size, being a guy that first licks at the bigs, makes me even more excited. Barreled 17.5% in his 55 at-bats. Had a hard hit percentage of 52.5%. The average exit velocity, obviously, this is not sustainable, but still, 95.4%. Had an expected slug of 651. The batting average being at 255, mixed with expected batting average at 296. We can meet in the middle. Let's say 265 is an expectation. And he just did it all very well. Things that aren't atrocious either is how often he struck out, 25.9%. We don't want to see negative regression. I kind of wanted that to stay where it is, but I want to see positive regression and walks. But again, first look at the bigs. I don't expect the guy coming up for the first time to hit that good and walk that often and not strike out. The fact that he hit 255 in that short amount of time and did his thing shows that there's going to be positive progression. Sal Stewart is a guy I'm going to be targeting wholeheartedly next year. Another third baseman eligible. I don't know who's playing third, who's playing like center, you know what I'm saying? But Sal Stewart is a guy we need to pay attention to. I think he's going to be a sleeper in a lot of leagues, so pay attention to Sal Stewart. Coming up next, I got guys like Matt McLean, the guy climbing through your air ducts, and Tyler Stevenson, how I'm handling them in 2026. Coming up next. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can just bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even follow the live games during the games and put a bet in. It makes watching football even more exciting. And when you got a little bit writing on the game, it just makes that much better. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes every game experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com and download it today on the FanDuel app or visit the site. Get started today. Yeah, buddy. And also, we might as well make that $5 bet count. Now, there is some interesting matchups this week. But the game I feel is being overlooked is the Broncos going against the Houston. Okay. What do you call it? Bo Nix is going on the under in total, but I'm going to do the over on the passing yards. I'm going to do an anytime touchdown. I'm going to do what do you call it? An over on the rushing yards, and then I'm also going to tie that in with an anytime touchdown from Cortland Sutton. And if you really want to get spicy and have those odds just skyrocket, anytime touchdown from Franklin, and I think you're going to have a nice little time. Might as well take that shot and take that bet at FanDuel. All right, let's get back into it. And look, I left you off with a cliffhanger. Matt McLean, Mr. John McClane himself, crawling around in those air-conditioned ducts, but honestly saving Christmas. But no, this year did not save Christmas whatsoever. Played about 147 games, had 510 at-bats, 73 runs, 18 doubles, 15 home runs, 50 ribs, 18 stolen bases, and bat a horrible 220. Now, Matt McLean, honestly, disappointing. Everything about McLean's season just supported what he did. Only barreled 7.7% of the time, only created hard contact 40% of the time, hence we saw a dip in power. Something that we didn't expect because he had a great 2023 season before getting hurt. You look at, okay, what else could have possibly supported? Well, he struck out 28.9% of the time. When you struck out that much, it explains the batting average. Even though he walked 9.5% of the time, which is actually really good, it's not good enough to make up for the strikeouts. He also whiffed 28.5% of the time and chased 26.3%. Not good. That combination of things say, okay, batting average isn't looking hot. I mean, yeah, sure, coming back from injuries, trying to just get things figured out, sure. But the dip is real. And you also carry it over and you look at what he did in 23, and some of the things are just supporting that. The guy that still strikes out 28.5% that year and 29.5% this year, guy that still doesn't walk at a great rip, still whiffs 28% of the time. It doesn't scream a guy that's going to be able to hit for batting average. Now, in 23, he did have a better barrel rate, which is just really good contact. That's 10.8%, and hit the ball hard contact percentage at 42.5%. It's a lot better than this year, especially that combo. So maybe we can get some positive regression in that and see some more power. Maybe he can hit 25. But ultimately, I'm not looking at Matt McLean in 2026 whatsoever. I don't think he's worth it. Maybe last couple picks of my draft and then, see if I can get some kind of value. But yeah, super high ceiling, but super low floor. So I'm not willing to pay the price that he might be going for because people are expecting a positive regression from him. I think everything is kind of saying we know the potential, but don't know if he's actually going to hit. Let's move on. Let's talk about Tyler Stevenson, catcher for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, Tyler Stevenson had a not so great year. 299 at bats, 40 runs, 18 doubles, 13 bombs, 50 ribs, batted 231. Now, there's some positives and there's some negatives. The power was there when he played. 13 home runs and 299 at bats, fantastic. 50 ribs, actually, pretty darn good, along with the runs at 40 runs. But the batting average was ugly. And yeah, you could say, oh, he was injured, etc. But a guy that struck out 33.9%, that's not sustainable. Even when you walk 10.8%, you're still crushing yourself. And yeah, he's probably due for some positive regression because he still struck out 22.7% of the time in 2024. But, you know, you just look and you just go, he's never really been a guy that doesn't strike out. Now, if you can get back to even the 2023 level where he'd struck out 26.1%, I'd be a little bit happier with it. But man, did he whiff a lot too, 30.6%. But if we can get back to 26% with the walk percentage of 10.8, then I could talk about a 250, 260 hitter. But I will say this, he barreled 14.4% of the time and mix that with hard hit percentage of 49.2%. And then normally I don't really like to factor this in a lot, but this was superb, which is launch angle sweet spot, 42.2%. Those three things say, he should have had more power, but hence why we saw 13 home runs and 299 at bats. If he could just play a whole season, we might be able to just get something special. But that's the thing too. He hasn't played a full season, truthfully. Look, 88 games this year, 138 games the year before. 2023 was the last time he did it. And that wasn't a great year for him. So just need to see more out of him. But there is upside. I think he's definitely an upside play, more of like a catcher 2, or like borderline catcher 1. He's no longer a guy I'm considering until he can honestly just stay healthy and perform on a daily basis. That's really just where I'm at with Tyler Stevenson. When he's on the field, I want him. But when he's not, it's too often. So it is what it is. But let's move on. So about Hunter Green, probably one of my favorite pitchers coming into this year. He was almost a top 12 pitcher for me. I think I had him going in as 14 going into the season, and I was so tempted. And when he played this year, he was absolutely lights out. Now, obviously, he dealt with injuries this year, so he didn't get the full season. But he still managed to start 19 games. He had 107 innings pitched. He had 132 strikeouts, a 2.76 ERA, and an 0.938 whip. He was killing it. Absolutely killing it. You look at everything he did this year, and you just go, man, what a year. Then you look under the hood, and it even screams it better. He had phenomenal movement on all his pitches, but his off-speed pitches. But who cares about those off-speed pitches? Because he did everything he needed. That fastball was averaging for that many starts, 99.5 miles per hour. Now, a guy that throws his fastball that often is going to get hit a little bit. He still had a fastball exit velocity against him at 90.5. But he got guys to chase 32.4% of the time. Created whiffs 31.4% of the time. Struck out guys 31.4% of the time. And only walk guys 6.2%. Those are elite. But my problems, average exit velocity, obviously. The barrel percentage against him is 9.6. That's what we call elite hitting barreling. So that means guys are getting good contact against him. And how often guys are hitting hard contact again when hard hitting percentage against him at 45%. Not good, especially when he only produces ground balls 34.2%. Now that off-speed pitches need to be fixed so that we can get more ground balls. That is going to be key. He leans on that fastball like crazy. He throws it 54% of the time. Hence why we see an average exit velocity is that high. There's more opportunity to hit that fastball, which means the average exit velocity is going to be up. Now, you look at the slider. He throws that 35 miles an hour, and he has good success with it. Do not get me wrong. It has a 186 expected batting average against it and a 156 batting average this year. Crushing it. That split finger got rocked this year. He threw it 10.8% of the time and had a 310 batting average. That needs some work. The curveball should be mixed in a little bit more. He only threw that legit under 1%, but it looked great when he did it. He needs to throw that a little bit more and, get away from that split finger. And I feel like we can talk about it. I feel like he kind of stepped away from the curveball a little bit just because of how poorly it did last year, but he hasn't thrown it enough in either year to really say it's good pitch. The split finger last year just had better results. So if he can figure out what went wrong, then he has a great third pitch. But I'd love to see him mix in the curveball for sure and just get that fourth pitch in and kind of be able to just throw people off guard. And Hunter Green is going to be amazing. What am I doing with him in 2026? Top 12 pitcher, hands down. It's too good to pass up on Hunter Green. But coming up next, Andrew Abbott. Is he actually worth a top 36 pick? I don't know. We'll find out that more coming up right after this. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of sports this season. Whether you're into following NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried Prize Picks yet, it's a simple and an easy way to play. Just pick more or less than 2 player stat projections and watch the winnings come in. It takes less than 60 seconds to make a lineup, and you can play anywhere. And Prize Picks operates including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using Prize Picks during football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, and it keeps the game very exciting. It's like picking my favorite players like Mahomes and Steph Curry to see my predictions play out. Like, honestly, the new stack feature is a game changer, right? You can pick more on Steph's pick points and threes and assists and in the same lineup. Plus, if you play your players leaves early or gets injured or anything of the sort, then you don't really lose. It definitely helps you out. Download Prize Pick app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Get $50 instantly in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That code is LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Now, all right, let's get back into it. Let's talk about Andrew Abbott. Andrew Abbott, I could probably spend a whole episode talking about, but I've always liked him. Dom liked him, but then gave up on him. Not throwing under the bus, Dom, but dude came out like a bat on, like oh my God, just incredible. 166 innings pitched, 149 strikeouts, 287 ERA with a 1.14 whip. Absolutely crushing it. Now, let's get into a little bit deeper. Great movement on all his pitches. He has good stuff. Expected ERA is a 3.57. That is a whole run better. Now, I would love to see that more like a 3.40, but still, expected batting average against him is about 241. Fastball velocity sitting at 92.8, which I'm never mad at. I'm not like this, snooty little, fastball kind of guy. It's like, oh, you don't throw 95 miles an hour. No, I think guys are still successful with slower fastballs. It's just a matter of the movement. And the key part is, though, the average exit velocity against his slow fastball, 87.8 miles an hour. Fantastic. Gets guys to chase 30% of the time. This is where he struggles a little bit. I need to see this go up. The whiff and K percentage gets guys a whiff about 24%, but the strikeouts only 21.8%. So at least the strikeouts need to come up, but at least he only walks guys 6.3% of the time, which is elite. Now you mix that in with the strikeout percentage, and you're not mad at the results. Obviously, you'd love to get him to a caper inning, but he's not far off, and I'll deal with this. Now, does not allow hard contact, only 33.7% of the time. Even though guys are barreling against him 8%, get that down just a hair, and we're talking about him in a whole different light. Now, being that he's a Reds pitcher, I would love to see him create more ground balls. That is the biggest thing that I need to make a stink about when it comes to him. Why I could see his ERA being a whole run higher. He doesn't produce enough ground balls. That is a big, big deal. Because I call the Reds home park the Great American Hitting Park, which if you're pitching there on half your starts, it's where you're going to get knocked around. So there's going to be some negative regression for Andrew Abbott. Is he a top 36 pitcher? Yeah, but like 36. I'm not touching him before that. Honestly, I prefer to have him as my SP4. But Andrew Abbott is definitely worth it. I just feel like the price is probably going to be too high on him, which therefore is just going to lead me to believe that he's going to be a bust this year. He's not a Caper 9. He's not a guy that's going to be able to produce ground balls and get easy outs, and pitches in a park that half the time that is going to cause issues for him, which can also get him in trouble. So therefore, Andrew Abbott, if he's not number 36 or lower, he's a bust. And that's pretty much how I'm handling it. And you should too, because there's blow up potential, in which therefore you're not going to get the return on your pick, ROP. And therefore, what's the point of picking him? Let's move on. So about Nick Lodolo, another pitcher on this team. And Lodolo had a very good year. Honestly, if you've been watching, I love Lodolo. I've been a Lodolo fan for years. 156 innings pitched, 156 strikeouts, a 3.33 ERA, and a 107 WHIP. Fantastic. Now, we'll say the FIP is at 381. And what is FIP? Field independent pitching. Essentially, if you had an average defense behind you, this would be your ERA. Now, not far off from his ERA, but still enough to make me feel a little bit disappointed. Now, the expected ERA is about 3.49. I could live with that a little bit more. It's only, 0.16 higher. That seems more reasonable. The expected batting average against him was 234. I would love to see more movement on his breaking balls, but specifically his fastball, especially since it only moves about 93.8 miles an hour. So needs to have more movement in order to be a successful pitch. The average exit velocity actually does keep down at 88.8 miles an hour. Gets guys to chase 32.8%. That is a great combo. Not giving up hard contact, along with getting guys to chase, which then leads to a whiff, which then leads to strikeouts, which he did strike out guys 24.3% of the time, which we see a K per inning essentially for him. Doesn't really give up hard contact or quality contact at this point because it's 8.1%. A hair in each direction, and it's qualified as better. Same thing with hard contact percentage. It's 40.5. That's actually really good in my opinion. And produces ground balls 44.6%, where I'd love Andrew Abbott to be at. And that is going to be the key part of any pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds pitching at home. You need to produce ground balls so that you're not having blow up games. And that's the key part. So I'm a fan of Nick Lodolo in 2026. Will I get him? Probably, because I think he's going to be overlooked in a lot of aspects, and he's going to be a lot cheaper than we expect. So Nick Lodolo, I need to have him on my team. Let's move on. Let's talk about Mr. Chase Burns. Great rookie this year. Obviously went down to IL for a little bit. They didn't bring him back into the starting rotation. They put him pretty much in the bullpen. Now, he had his ups and downs, obviously, but the dude's a great pitcher. 43 innings pitched, 67 strikeouts. Dude throws hard as hell. He had a whip of 1.3, a 1.31, an ERA of 4.57, but the FIP was actually 2.65. How much is that supportable? Well, let's look at it. His expected ERA was a 3.47 versus the 2.57 he posted. So it's a little bit over a run difference in the positive direction, and I love that. His fastball sits at, on an average, 98.7 miles an hour, which he throws incredibly hard. It's 100, like no problem. Now, when you do that, you got to produce ground balls. He doesn't do that. The average exit velocity against him was 90.2 miles an hour. Not good, but he gets guys to chase 31.5%. He gets guys to whiff 31.9%. He creates strikeouts 35.6%. The walk percentage, I would like to see a little bit better. I'd like to see that more of towards like sub 8 at like a 7 and a change, and I'd be a lot happier, but 8.5, not atrocious. The barrel percentage needs to come down. He's allowing quality contact 9.5% of the time. Mix that in with how often guys are hitting the ball hard, and that is bad. That means he's going to give up home runs. So there's some possible blow-up games. There's going to be growing pains. The dude's only 22 years old. He might not be good till he's 25. He's going to have his ups and downs and prove, hey, he belongs in the conversation, and it's not, the story isn't written, like a Lucas Giolito, for instance. But it's going to be some growing pains. So where am I drafting him next year? Not where we were drafting Grayson Rodriguez in year 2, probably lower, definitely, probably like pick 125 to 150, SP4, 5-ish. And that's going to be the sweet spot for him, because if he busts, I can replace an SP5. If he doesn't bust, I would just hit gold, but the risk does equal the reward, and you could get screwed at the end of the year. So Chase Burns, you're going to have to be careful. If he's going in the right direction with that, I'm definitely going to draft him. Now, let's do this quick. Christian Encarnacion-Strand. He obviously did not make the cut this year. Looked like absolute garbage. Like horrendous. Now, he went to the minors and fixed up his act a little bit. 229 at-bats, 11 home runs, 37 runs, 33 runs, hit 20 doubles in that time and 2 triples. Batted 245. That's about standard for him. I think he's going to be a 250 hitter, maybe even 240. Kind of have more of that Schwarber feel. He's just going to crank home runs. Now, how does that affect you in fantasy? You're not. You're going to draft him your last pick of your draft. He's going to be a sleeper, and we're just going to say if he breaks camp or, hey, maybe he'll figure it out. And then you just walked away with an amazing player that is producing well above his draft price. But Christian Encarnacion-Strand is just straight up a sleeper at the end of the day and nothing else. He's not a guy I'm trusting to draft this year, and it is what it is. That's it for today. So, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do everything you can to share the show because we truly love bringing it to you. And thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get your local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Peace out.